Transferring from the FCS to the FBS has become commonplace in college football, but as we've seen over the years, transferring from the FCS to the FBS doesn't immediately guarantee somebody automatic success. So then if you're not immediately guaranteed success, what would make somebody leave a guaranteed position at an FCS school where they have security to gamble and take their talents to the FBS? Let's get into it a little bit. Historically, the number one reason why players would transfer from the FCS to the FBS was for their draft stock. NFL scouts don't respect FCS film as much as they do Power 5 film. So if I'm a player who has the opportunity to go to an FBS school, particularly a Power 5 school, I owe it to myself to gamble on myself, bet on myself, and see what I can do at that level. In the modern college football landscape, it seems that players are transferring less due to their draft stock and more due to the ramifications of NIL. With college athletes now having the ability to profit off of their name, image, and likeness, this completely changes the game. Now, if I'm a high-ranking player and I have a good season at the FCS level, I now have a dollar sign attached to my name. There's less resources at the FCS, there's less money at the FCS. The ability for somebody to make a large dollar amount at the FCS is very unlikely, but that's very likely at the P4 level. And with these schools constantly chasing championships, conference championships, and national championships, they will use the transfer portal to get their team better any way possible. So what it's turned into now is a system where if I have a good season at the FCS level, I will now be looking to transfer to make my just due in a dollar amount at a Power 4 school. But what this also has revealed is that just because a player transfers from the FCS to the FBS does not mean that they'll see the same level of success at the FBS. And Sam Herder of Hero Sports has done a great job of reporting the data and numbers on this. Per Sam Herder, the average college football player plays 600 to 700 snaps a season. In the 2024 football season, there were 350 offensive and defensive players that transferred from the FCS to the FBS. Of those 350 players, only 19% played at least 600 snaps. And more than half, at 55%, played less than 300 snaps. So what does this mean? This means that despite the allure of money and more opportunity, a lot of these players are transferring and not seeing the same amount of opportunity as they did at their FCS school. So if that's the case, then why transfer in the first place? It's a gamble. A player is betting on themselves that they'll better their draft stock, leaving their current FCS school to go to an FBS school. But the numbers show that it doesn't always work that way. Now, obviously, with all of this, there are the success stories, like Teddy Buchanan, who transferred from UC Davis and got drafted out of Cal. There's Cam Scatabo, who transferred from Sac State, got drafted out of Arizona State. And then there's Samori Toure, who transferred from Montana to go to Nebraska and ultimately got drafted. All of these are true. But with that, there's just as many stories of guys who decided to stay at the FCS and were drafted out of the FCS. Take two examples from this year. Gray Zabel, who surely could have transferred, got decent NIL money, and probably would have been drafted high. And you also have Jackson Slater out of Sac State, drafted in the 5th round to the Tennessee Titans, probably could have transferred out of Sac State and still got drafted, but decided to stay and was drafted. So yes, there's examples on both sides of the spectrum. On one side, you got the guys who did transfer and did end up bettering their draft stock, and you got the guys who did transfer and didn't end up bettering their draft stock. And you also have the guys who ended up staying and still were able to get drafted. So based on the numbers, based on the success rate, do you guys think it's worth it for somebody to transfer? Or do you think they're better off just staying? Or do you think it just ends up being a case-by-case basis? You guys let me know, and I'll catch you guys next time. See you later.